What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Rest Rounds. I'm Eric, and this is Adam.
Hi, guys.
Is that a good intro? Is that how we should do it now?
That's how we should do it. That's it.
Well,
I mean, that's the one.
Beyond accents, we also talk about reflection around martial arts, around physical activity, because, it's important as we go out through our daily lives, as we go through the grind, the hustle, whatever it is you do, to sit and reflect at some point and learn from the experience, because without that reflection, we just get stuck in the grind. We get stuck moving forward. And today, as we just get into this, I want to do one more episode where we talk more about the values, about the reason behind it, and a little bit more about us through storytelling. This is kind of the heart of what a podcast to me is the stories, not necessarily the lecture and the PowerPoint presentation, but more of the conversation and the stories that are personal to Adam and myself and whoever's on here. And Adam, with his podcast, is Flow Over Fear, and that's talking about fear, the flow over fear and how you rise above it. And the other thing that I like that you say is the human side of high performance. And so I think there's the tie-in between what we do, because the human side is the story. It is what is different from one person to another, because high performance is high performance. The average man, the average woman, we all have nuance within us, and it is our story. It's how we move our body and move our mind and stimulate those things that writes that life story. So today, the values that drive the story we live is going to also be unique. So this show, I want to talk about our values. And the first one we get into is ownership. And I'll give you the four. It's ownership, laughter, vulnerability, and growth. But ownership, is, in my perspective, I'm just going to say, not blaming other people. It's not excusing other people, but it's also not going out and just trying to say, and you're the reason that I'm struggling. I have no power to change my circumstances. It doesn't excuse bad things that have happened to you. But Adam, what does ownership mean to you?
Ownership means to me, when you said that, it resonates with me, because I have a value myself that is extreme responsibility, and that's really ownership. And it means that it's basically this idea that I am, and this is one of my affirmations. One of the affirmations I use every day is this: I am responsible for everything I am, everything I have been, and everything I will be. Everything that is part of me, I am responsible for. Now, does that mean that I am at fault or I'm at blamed for it? No, it doesn't. But I'm still responsible for me. Every little electronic that exists in me has been gifted to me or lent to me or something like that, so that I can be a steward of it in whatever way I can. I own it, and I have to own everything that I am and everything that I have been and everything that everyone's done to me. I own it, but I don't. But it's important to separate ownership from blame.
Yeah. And for me, that was a really hard pill to swallow. I think that's why, I stayed stuck in my rut for so long, is because I didn't want to do that. It's really nice to blame other people. And when we talk about endurance sport, like, one of the tenets of this show is physical activity. That is endurance sport. It's martial arts. It happens to be framed mostly around triathlon and jiu-jitsu for me, and, and karate and triathlon for you. So it's going to come back to that a lot. And that's, where Rest Rounds comes from, is this idea of going hard and then taking it easy. And I was just listening to Bulletproof for BJJ, a podcast, where it said this episode almost cost us our friendship, and it was about rest rounds. And I was like, maybe I should check out this episode. And it was, should you take them? And they, as athletes, had two very different ideas. And ultimately, the difference was ownership. It was, what is your journey? Taking ownership of controlling that journey. And that means going down a certain path. One believed that they were okay. One believed that they weren't. And it was really, centered around, what are your goals? Like, what are you trying to achieve? Mm-hmm. And when I talk about my own rest round, and my own ownership, I look at sport as a really great way to catalyze that conversation, because in martial arts specifically, not team ball sports, I'm not, you and me, Adam, we're not really gifted at team ball sports.
Nope.
Right? No. I'm good at basketball as long as no one tries to block me and I don't have to move.
Yeah. So I'm good at basketball too, as long as nobody hands me the basketball or expects me to do anything with it. So yeah, I'm there with you. I hear you.
I just see people like your parents in the stand. They're like, oh, there's Adam. He's out there having fun. He's just running around. He's getting ready for his triathlon. I don't know why I gave your parents a subtle, Yooper accent, but being from California, I don't think that would be accurate.
No, yeah, I mean they it was like totally that was my parents, man.
Yeah, Adam Zeltler is having fun, bro.
It's like yeah. So and I don't want to distract us from something, but something important just came up because I was thinking, as you said that this is a martial arts themed show. There's martial arts involved with it, like jujitsu and karate. I was thinking, and you were talking about how you wanted to sign this show on. Well, why not just hiya, like hiya.
Hiya! My name is Eric. Yes.
So simple. It was right in front
beautiful.
of us. Yeah.
I know. That's beautiful. From now on. Hiya! Everything needs a hook. I'm going to own that, brother. I'm going to own that. Thank you. Thank you very much.
It's yours.
But the ownership in a very real practical sense that I've been learning is non-team ball sports, because then you can blame someone. You can, like I was as a kid, I quit, I think, all the ball sports because I lost all the championship games, 2 of them. Okay. Only lost 2 championship games for my team, which is a lot for a kid to lose.
Sure. Yeah.
So it was Little League baseball. Yeah. Last out. I'm the last up, I'm the last batter. Grounder to shortstop. I run, and I still think about this to this day. I dove into first base because somehow I thought that would make me get there faster. Yeah. I caught hell for it. I didn't make it. I don't think I would have made it if I stood up, but everyone attacked me on my own team and blamed me that I was the idiot that slid into first. And if I wouldn't have slid, then we would have won the championship without a doubt.
Oh, of course, that was the only reason. And by the way, let me ask you if your mindset as you were getting up to that at bat, knowing that you were the last batter of that, or there were 2 outs. You were the last hope. Eric Beach, last hope for the Wisconsin Tigers or whatever the heck you were called. I don't know what you were called, but what were the thoughts going through your head? Were you in the mindset of, oh yeah, I'm going to win this game, or were you in the mindset of, I don't want anything to do with this. Screw this. Get me out of here.
Yeah, I probably was that. I was just, it was more about the pain that was going to follow. Should I screw this up?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because the reason I asked, I've had some of those experiences too, especially with baseball, because that was the only ball sport I played, and that was the only ball sport where I ever had a chance to, quote unquote, win a game for a team or lose a game. And I've had a couple of experiences like that where I didn't dive into first because I'm not that great.
You're not an idiot.
Oh
I know.
My gosh. but just striking out because looking, without swinging the bat because a curveball was coming toward my face and it was going to hit me, falling over in the batter's box while the curveball dives down and it goes into a strike. That was in and of itself embarrassing too. But I always have that fear of like, I don't want to be the guy to like actually have to that has anything important to happen. I just want to,
Well, that fell on my shoulders, and that was the end of my baseball career. Although I will say I did go the next year, and we didn't make the championship, but I got to play in that last game, and we won that game, not because of me, but it was not a professional league in any way. So it was just like, hey kid, you came out to see the championship game and you lost already. So why don't you come on in, and I was like, well, thanks, and I got this. Instead of a first place ribbon, they gave me a second place ribbon with a participation ribbon with a second place ribbon cut and stapled to it. Yeah. So I kept that one. I'm like, that's a weird, no one else has that probably.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then football was the next sport, flag football. And it was a Super Bowl. And I never got the ball the entire time, like the whole season, until this final play of the Super Bowl. And they said, no one will expect it. And here's the funny part. Give it to Beach because no one's going to expect them to hand it to Eric Beach. This is not the NFL where they've been scouting and being like, oh yeah, Eric, he's a good blocker, but they're never going to give him as an offensive pay. No one knows who I am, but like they'll never expect it. And they lateral it to me for the last play. I dropped the lateral, game over.
Oh, yeah.
And then I never played football again.
Yep.
But what are you going to do? It's all my fault. So I take the ownership of that and carry that with me and live a story until I get to high school and wrestle. And that's where it was like, I did that sport for 2 reasons. One is no running. I don't want to do running sports, which was a huge mistake in wrestling because it's a lot of anaerobic endurance and a lot of running and a lot of sprinting and a lot. I mean, it's a grueling sport. Beautiful, but grueling. Don't do it if you don't want to run or exert yourself. But the other reason is because no team. I mean, you're on a team, but it's an individual against an individual. So what are you going to do? Just you handling your business. And jiu-jitsu is the same thing. I'm going to go compete in a couple of weeks for my first time, and I own the journey. There is nobody that is going to win it for me, and there's no one that's going to lose it for me but me. And the reason I will win or lose is because of the mindset I develop, or because of my belief in myself and the work that I put into the mat, the amount that I've recovered and rested, the amount that I've thought about it, the amount that I'm prepared and confident to go into it. It's all me. I can listen to other people, but it's me. And I love that about this sport when it's one-on-one, because I don't get to blame anyone else. And I'm curious, triathlon was the same thing. Mm-hmm. It's just me. I can't even draft.
Yeah.
It's all on you. It's all on me.
It's all on us. And I feel the exact same way, because anytime I'd play a ball sport, football, I didn't even play football. So here's my experience with football. I played like when I was 8 or 9 years old. And the reason I wanted to play was because the pads looked awesome. Putting on a football helmet was awesome. And then lining up as whatever the unimportant position was in Pop Warner football, which was usually like the outside guard, or if that's even a position. I was that. And I remember there was a punt that was going to happen, and I charged the punt and I made it through. Nobody blocked me, probably because they just didn't think I was a threat. And then I just ran in. I was like, I'm going to get it. I'm going to get it. Somebody came in from the side. Kaboom. Right on the chin music. And that was the end of my football career 2 weeks later, even though I met Roger Staubach. He played catch with me, and he called me a star of the future. But was he wrong?
Oh my God.
Staubach.
What an idiot.
But no, I was in triathlon though, because it was an individual sport. It was all on me, and I could take responsibility. I could take that ownership of all of it. And for me, it didn't, that wasn't the first individual sport to come. Like the first individual sport to come for me was tennis. Or even playing music like the cello. That was the first time it came to me. But then I could actually join a group. But I knew my place in there, and I could take ownership in the right way. And there was no balls thrown at me. So that was an important part too.
Yeah, super big. No more balls.
Yes, no more balls.
None. Although
that's the name of this podcast, by the way. No more balls.
Yeah, we're just really weak men. Trying to reclaim my manhood through jiu-jitsu.
Right. Just focusing on the things that you can control, and removing the things that you can't, or just like not focusing on the things you can't, rising above those things, acknowledging them, and moving on. That's a superpower, by the way. That's what you have to learn.
And one of the superpowers that helps you do that, I found, is so you shrink down your world. It's what can I control? And then it's letting laughter in, because when the villain is so big, it's like just depression, it's sadness, it's helplessness, it's anxiety. And the antidote, we talk a lot about antidotes. One of them is laughter. Mostly not self-deprecating in the way that you just minimize yourself all the time, but you have to start laughing at yourself. It's easy to laugh at memes or other people falling down or whatever it is, but when you can do that to yourself, and jiu-jitsu has been a great teacher for me. Although at first, the first couple classes I went to, I would drive home, so mad because I was an idiot, and I, whatever, or like, I'd be like, oh man, I'm a spaz, aren't I? I'm doing the thing. And then you get to a point where you just have to start to laugh.
Yes.
And realize the absurdity of it all. And that is like I mentioned in the first episode, that's what Adam opened my eyes to, in saying, like, take whatever you love and then figure out how to make fun of it, because otherwise you're going to start to think of it as you're putting it on a pedestal. Wouldn't you say that's kind of what you do?
Of course. Yeah. I mean, and you turn it into something where you can develop an immense amount of arrogance that is undeserved if you're not self-deprecating about yourself. Now, this is a careful balance. And if I do say so myself, see, this is an example of me doing just that. I'm pretty damn good at it. But
here.
So the whole, but the whole thing is, it's like, okay, with triathlon, when we were auditioning for Quest for Kona, I could have put a video out there to audition, and my first instinct was, putting a video out. I wanted to look like Michael Phelps. I was going to do this highly produced thing where I was sweating while I was,
Yeah.
running a slow motion and like just looking as awesome as possible. And then I realized I can't do that because I'm not Michael Phelps and I do not look awesome when I'm sweating. I look like I don't even want to go there. But so I made it funny. I just got in a Speedo and did something funny and like pretended I ate nothing but bananas. It works out because you can strike that balance of laughing at yourself. And speaking of laughing, I have to know the story behind that tied tie be in your background there, Eric. You have a tied tie hanging from what looks like right behind you. Yeah.
Hold on.
That there is just like one random tie hanging out there.
If you look back at every single video I have, this tie is in every video. I'm looking at the wrong camera. This one. Okay. This tie is a tie that my dad tied. And my dad and I, we didn't have the best relationship. He's been dead, I think, 10 years now. And I remember this is like this one thing that, I'm sorry if you're listening to the podcast, but hey, go on over to YouTube and check out the replay. So this tie, he tied, and I was like, it's a double Windsor knot. And it was one of those father-son moments that I think is iconic where, the dad teaches you to shave and he ties your first tie. And he did this a few times. This is one of the things that makes me feel like this was my dad being a dad in that very important way. And when he died, I said I would never untie this. And so now I hang it up because I don't have regrets, but I blamed him for a lot of things. I didn't take ownership. And part of ownership was looking at him and his struggles and then looking past them and recognizing all of the strengths that he had and those strengths that are in me as well, because I'm his son. Yeah. And there's a genetic link to that. And now through that redemption, I get to see all of these really positive traits that are in me, and I get to live them to the fullest in a way he never could, because he never got to this point, which, is our next value, is vulnerability. He never was able to look at himself. He was just saying, this is how I am. You people have to deal with it. My temper, it's my French temper, or some, he would blame it on something like that, not on the fact that his, abuse that he suffered as a kid, or what happened to him, what he wanted, what the world wouldn't let him have, how, all of those things that every single person goes through. He doesn't have to be a hugely traumatized victim of some horrible crime, or we experience the world and we make choices, and he made choices and he suppressed a lot of who he was. And a lot of that's in me. So if this ever gets untied, I'll be very sad.
Yeah. Well, so a couple things. That is like an amazing story. And that is really incredibly sweet and like powerful. Second thing is I feel like an asshole. Because I thought it was just like a tie I thought, hey, this is going to be a funny story. Like, why is the tie there? And I was thinking it related to humor, but it didn't. And that went in the wrong direction. So I apologize, Eric.
As soon as dead father is mentioned, it's like, wow, boy, let's shift courses. Up and over here.
So
talking about humor. Yeah. Hilarious story. Hey, but that's the nature of it. You have to be able to laugh, and you also have to be able to go deep. I had in the jiu-jitsu world, my new gym, Freeform. My new gym, like I've been going to a gym for all these years, and I just switched to a new gym. I started going to a gym, and it's called Freeform, and I've made it a point to kind of try and meet with people from the gym outside of the gym once a week. Not nailing it, but I've been able to do on 2 separate occasions, lunch or dinner with one of the people that go there. And this last one, was a really good conversation because it was centered around that whole conversation of vulnerability and, hey, tell me your story kind of a thing. And most of the time we think of, I went to high school here, grew up here, and got this job, and I do this now. What about you? And I'm like, joined the Army, felt like I was much of a man, so I wanted to fight, and had my traumas as a kid, and I never fought back, and drug addiction, alcohol, suicide at 2008, like all these things, not really deep, like, and there I was on the brink of life and death, sorrow running through my, it's not like deep, dark, secret reveal, but it's like glossing and saying, here's the snapshot. And we can go deeper on any topic because I've healed all these things. I've dealt with them and they empower me.
Hmm.
But after I finished my little symposium, he said, "Wow, I didn't expect you to go that deep, but now that you have, I'm going to match that." And he felt comfortable to share with me, again, not in deep, dark detail. He began to share his truth, his experience, because he saw the freedom to do so, and vulnerability, empowered vulnerability, is the way that we can make these deep connections. And that's what I care about. I want to laugh deep, but I want to converse deep as well. I want to share deep. I want depth. I like superficial. I like to joke around, but that's one side of yin and yang, like, let's go into the light and let's go into the dark a bit, but only in empowered ways. Do you feel the same?
Definitely. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the vulnerability piece is super important because that's like the precursor of authenticity. And you got to know where your level is, because I know that my default is kind of just like this lighthearted humor that doesn't get like super, you know, crazy or anything like that, but it's lighthearted humor, it's dad jokes and things like that. But it is also super vulnerable. I talk about my alcoholism and all of this stuff, and when I infuse humor into it too, it softens it a little bit, and also like kind of removes the guard a little bit, just shares that like that it humanizes a lot of that stuff. That's why when we talk about like the human side of high performance, that's really kind of where that comes in. It's a very human thing to experience. So
And it's hard for people to get vulnerable and get that human side of, because I think the high performance, I don't want to say high performance is easy, because it's not. Like, it takes a lot of effort, but in some ways I feel like it's easier to maybe lose yourself in something, because high performance to me just means incredible focus. High performance, we assume means big job, really productive, but high performers and hyper focus, you can do that with video games, you can do that with anything. So I think of that hyper focus is really easy to lose yourself in something. I was a high performing alcoholic.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh yeah, no, I was really freaking good at it.
Yeah.
Or really bad at it, depending on what your perspective is.
Hey, depends on the side of the pond you're looking at.
But I will say I was really consistent with it. That consistency to other things too.
High performance. Yeah, that's what I'm
Absolutely.
saying.
High performance.
But vulnerability is a lot
Yes.
harder to become to perform highly in vulnerability. That's a little tricky.
It is.
And I think that, jujitsu for me and has, okay, so vulnerability has been a thing I've been really trying to focus on and work with for many years. But jiu-jitsu highlights it in a new way, because up until then, it was very conversational. It was, what am I willing to open up? And people would message me saying, hey, you shouldn't share those stories. Like, and I know it was their insecurity, because what I'm sharing is not something that I feel is a risk. I'm not sharing from my wounds. I'm sharing from scars. Scars have healed. They're lessons and they're my experience. And I want to empower them, because if not, I hide them away and then they come and nip at my heels again. And that's where a lot of these trauma responses come from. So vulnerability answers that for me. It allows me to go and have those conversations. And then over years, that ends up being like the superpower that you talk about, is your ability, my ability to share from an empowered stance my life experience and to mine those lessons. And jiu-jitsu puts me in very vulnerable positions and sometimes humorous ways, but you have to be okay. Like, part of vulnerability, the part I want to talk about maybe right now is the giving yourself, you're open. You're not armored up, you're open. So if I get into a match with someone, if I'm fighting, I'm very vulnerable and I'm trying to protect myself, but also I know there comes a point where there's an opening. And for me to take advantage of this spot, I have to get vulnerable. I have to open up and make a go for it. Otherwise, I'm just going to stay turtled and the world's going to do what it's going to do. My partner's going to do what it's going to do. The fight's going to go the way it's going to go, but I have to be vulnerable, open up, to strike. Like, there's an opening. And if someone can time it just right, they'll catch you. Chances are they won't, because they don't know you're about to, unless you're really telegraphing, I suppose. But then you guard back up, so you're not just bleeding all over the place and my feelings. It's no. I'm taking very, very empowered moments to go there.
Well, yeah, you're getting into something that's very important, is how these values overlap. where vulnerability can overlap with ownership, right? And that's an important relationship those two have, because if you're just vulnerable without ownership, you're right, you're just a victim. You're and that's just complaining. If there's nothing you're going to do about it, then there's just a victim mentality that the world's against me, everything's going to fall on top of me. And I just kind of thought about this, and I'm going to get crude and vulnerable here for a second.
Yes.
But I think vulnerability is a lot. Just it's like a fart, and here's why. Because if you hold it in, if you're not vulnerable, obviously it causes a lot of pain. And obviously it causes a lot of pressure, and eventually it starts to seep out in very embarrassing and maybe unfortunate ways. But here's the thing: if you can let it out in a good environment from time to time, it can be a relief. It can be humorous. It can be funny. It can, and if you do it, and you have to do it in the right environment with a group of buddies, yeah, great. That's the right time to be vulnerable, or right time to let that fart out. In the elevator, no, definitely not. So there's those I think those values, they overlap because they feed onto one another, and that's how the magic happens. It's not just these values in and of themselves that work out, but it's how they play in harmony together.
Yeah, it's a flow, right?
Yep.
You're never just one thing, and that's the important thing. With one thing that I love about jiu-jitsu is the flow of it. It's technique that goes to another technique. Like, you're never just static. You're continually moving towards something. And in karate, I know you have what would be called katas, perhaps, or some sequences, and that's a whole flow. It's not a fight. It's not like you would do this entire sequence, but it's like, in a perfect world, this would be how you would fight and attack so many people. So, but there's a flow in it, and it's not about the application on real enemies. It's about just moving through life. And there's a power in that, because when you do that through vulnerability, you're not afraid. If you're going to do a kata, you can't be nervous. You can't be insecure, because then it's gonna be like, a little, and it's ha, like you see the pros, and they're screaming. And I think one of the reasons they scream is because you just have to let everything down. Like, if you're screaming, you've already reached the highest crazy level that you can get. So anything you do is coming from a place of power. So it's like, in training, that's where we go to allow ourselves to take, in these small groups, we train, we get really connected with people, we share, we heal, we grow, which is the final value, is growth. You can't really grow unless you're first vulnerable, and to be vulnerable is to be able to laugh at yourself, because we're not vulnerable because we're afraid we'll be attacked or embarrassed. Those are really the two things. And if you're taking ownership of your journey, you're not really worried about that, because you're like, I'm in control of whatever's happening. Whatever's happening, I'm going to give it a meaning. Whether that's I'm the loser who lost the championship game twice because I suck, or, bro, what about the 2 outs that came before me? We're going to excuse them? Because that was pretty stupid what that kid did.
They had a bit of a cop out too, because you had the courage to get up there and actually stand up at bat and do the thing and put yourself at risk. That in and of itself is vulnerable.
I swung.
So you're not the one that's wrong in that instance. You were pretty wrong by sliding in the first place.
Yeah, apparently. But I still sometimes, as a 39-year-old man, I still go, no, I think that was the right choice. It was. Reaching out and touching it, my foot maybe wouldn't have gotten there as fast.
Yeah,
but hey,
you look at Pete Rose and his diving slides. Heck yeah, it could have been the right thing.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking. I wasn't panicked at all.
Yes, no, not at all.
But hey, how about that shortstop, that field of the grounder?
Yeah,
he was nervous. I guarantee that kid was. So that's when I think about the totality of the environment. That kid got to be a hero. Yeah. The throw to first base was perfect. First base catches the ball. He's a hero. Those 2 players, the pitcher, I guess, threw a ball that I hit a grounder. So, maybe they have it's the same environment, the same situation that happened, but the stories are easy for them to tell themselves.
Yeah.
But they had to handle their nerves.
The parents who fed them the orange slices during the 7th inning, that could have had an impact.
The poisoned orange slices. Don't even get me started on the toxic orange crisis.
Speaking of farts.
Yeah. Crop dusting.
Yeah.
Do you know there's
We're
methane
12
in your
guys.
butt?
Yes, we're 12.
Yeah, we are. Except for the nitrogen farts, I believe. That's what the ones that don't stink. I could be wrong on that. Don't fact check. Just trust me.
I'm sure there's nitrogen. I mean, there's nitrogen in the air in our air here, right? So we're breathing it all in. It's processing, or we're swallowing air. So that air has to include nitrogen.
Hey,
So yeah,
we'll take it. I mean,
fertilizer.
it's better than ingesting sweat from your training partner who's very profusely sweating. Or that's another art of jiu-jitsu, is like dodging the forehead sweat. And I experienced that recently where I'm like, yeah, this isn't great.
That's definitely one of the downsides of close contact sports like this. Yeah, the sweat transmission kind of stuff. But yeah, there's a lot of vulnerability in that too. Is being willing to accept somebody else's sweat.
Blood brothers.
Right. Yeah, and you're just wondering, like, where have you been? I don't know. So
I'm gonna need your backstory. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So growth. That's an area of growth. I mean, just to step onto the mat is growth. I mean, you're going to grow because all of these things have to happen for you to take and, be courageous. I know there's a lot of people that I've talked to that get really inspired by martial arts and they want to do it. There's insecurity, there's germs, there's, I'm not strong enough, I'm going to be embarrassed by this person, I'm like, yeah, probably.
Yeah.
But I mean, one of the ways that I got over that was I took a chance on a high ropes course, and I was a perfectionist. I still am, admittedly, and I've dealt with it. And in this moment, I chose to deal with it because I wanted to be the best. Okay, anytime I do anything, I want to be the best there has ever been right now.
Enneagram 1, bitches.
Yeah, what this ropes course is mine. And so I get to this one, and it's planks that you have to walk across. And I think there was like a thing above you could grab, and I saw one guy walk slowly without grabbing it, and I was like, I'll do you one better, sir. I'm gonna run over this. But then I was like, wait, I'm gonna fall intentionally. And so I got up there and I sprinted, probably made it like 4 planks, and then I just ate it, and I got down, and the person who was doing the ropes course was like, what was that? There's, and I'm like, no, I did that on purpose because I wanted to humiliate myself in front of everybody to see what would happen, because my belief is if I'm embarrassed, the world ends, and I'm never going to hear the end of it. Nobody cared. They watched it, laughed, made one comment, and then they went on with their day. And I just watched it. I made the choice to watch, truly, not tell myself a story, but to just watch what happened, and nothing happened. It was never mentioned again. It lives in my head like every time I've embarrassed myself, whether it was intentional or not. But now, because I was able to make that shift and take that risk and go into it knowing I'm going to get punched in the face, knowing I'm going to get sweat dripped on me and I'm going to be okay, knowing I'm going to look foolish, but I'm still going to be okay, as long as I keep coming back and don't tell myself that I'm the loser that, again, has embarrassed themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, growth is such a powerful, and that's a big deal, because especially in jiu-jitsu, karate, all this kind of stuff, you do risk embarrassing yourself. You do. I mean, being punched in the face is not just painful; it's embarrassing. I mean, it is. So, and I think it's more pain on our ego than it is on our face. I do karate with my wife. She punched me in the face the other night. It was, embarrassing, and it hurt. But it's also like it gives you an opportunity to punch back, to start fighting back, to get that confidence back. And growth is such an important part of this, because it's not about fits and spurts of growth. It's about continuous growth. Continuous growth is important, because if we're not growing at any time, or if we plateau, or we stop doing something, or we've had the achievement, or we've done what we want to do, we've gotten the black belt, or whatever it is, it's like, well, what's next? What's next? It's always what's next. And that's why continuous growth is so important, because the reason people feel stuck, and this is one of the biggest, I think one of the biggest obstacles people face, is they feel stuck. It's because they've stopped growing, or they stopped knowing what direction they want to grow, or what they want to achieve. It's just, they get stuck. So growth is important. It's important to really keep looking ahead at where you want to be, and not be ashamed of the fact that you're not there yet, but really appreciate the journey on what it's taking to get there, because actually getting there is not that exciting. I mean, I did the Ironman World Championship. I raced it. It was a blast. I remember crossing the finish line and being, yes, that was cool. And then I remember being in the finish area and being like, oh man, I feel sick to my stomach. Don't they have pizza? Where's this? What's that? I mean, it's like, that was it. That was 4 years leading up to that. But you know what was the best part about that? The 4 years of growth. That was the best part.
I'll add to that because my own Ironman experience, and definitely not a world championship, but the completion of that journey, epic, right? And I remember that, and I remember the years that led up to it and that whole process. The other part that I remember is the relationships that were formed. It's the moment of Roberto being in the hotel the night before. He was racing that race with me, and he had a present for me, and he was going to give it to me upon completing.
Was it Vaseline?
Oh, no, not that's you,
Vaseline.
buddy.
That was me. Yeah, that was better than any gift you'd ever get.
Yeah, I know. I thought he gave me the best gift until Ironman Wisconsin. Vaseline.
Yes.
That's what true friends do.
Right.
But Roberto, he had this gift that he wanted to give me, and he was so confident that I was going to finish, and he decided to give it to me the night before. And so it was Ironman Brazil, like Florianopolis, his T-shirt, and I cherish it, and it meant a lot. And his wife didn't really speak English, but she wrote me a handwritten note in English, and that was so meaningful. Like these little moments, right? And then remembering on the bike course, I'm way behind I'm just beating cutoff times, and so I see Roberto on the marathon course because it's a 4-loop run down the Promenade d'Anglice, or however you say it, and I see him running, which is cool because that's a really, that's hard to spot someone, but I'm looking for him. And then I see him, I go like, hey, Roberto. And he's like, get in your aeropods, go, you've got to fucking go. Because he knew I was, really close to not getting, beating the bike cutoff. And I was like, okay, yes, sir. And then, I pedal on it. And, but it's like this really cherished memory, because those moments, it wasn't the race. It was all these moments sprinkled within the race and all the moments that were leading up to the race that all make this story. And left to just the finish line, it's disappointing in certain, like time goes on, and then that, is disappointing. Like I remember talking to you after the world championships when you raced that and remembering, I don't know what I was thinking, like that you're just going to be just this sunshine rainbow the rest of your life. Like everything was good now, but you were Adam. Yeah, just this,
that sucks, man.
I know. I was so let down.
No,
it's like I've been investing in this friendship for a while now.
It's like I turned to Gandalf the White.
Yeah.
I was like,
but you're just
transcended Adam.
You're just Adam the Hill.
Yes.
Anyway, you're doing better now.
That's good.
Yeah,
I'm glad.
Got your own.
Yeah, that's because I've been growing still.
Exactly. If you weren't, hey, what's the opposite of growth? Death, dying.
Yes.
If you're not growing, you're dying. Which a little bit extra, but I tend to feel that way when I'm not growing. I'm stagnating and I'm regressing, and that just feels like death to me. And I want to evolve. It doesn't. And jiu-jitsu is really great because the white belt mentality. I was talking to my coach Ben and told him, like, I know belts come in colors and stripes and all that, but I really enjoy being a white belt with no stripes. And I believe it used to be you were a white belt if you were a student, and a blue belt if you were a teacher. That was it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I love that, but that's the mentality I want to keep, because I also appreciate knowing people's skill level based on their rank. So I know kind of gauging, hey, we're going to do an open roll. Well, you're a purple belt. So I'm not going to be, I know what to expect. Like the expectation is there, but I want to always feel that lack of pressure to be someday a purple belt who's rolling with a white belt, and not be like, oh man, if I don't smash this person, then I'm going to be embarrassed, and I don't believe you get the purple belt without being able to handle yourself against a white belt. So I'm not saying that I'm worried, but it's that pressure. Like blue belts look at the 4-stripe white belt and it's like, that guy wants to beat me because I'm a blue belt, and he'll feel, that hierarchy kind of thing. I just don't want to have that mentality of fear.
Right. Yeah. No, I totally get that. That's like the fear of performing at your high level. And I get that now because I'm not a triathlete really anymore. I mean, I can become one again, but I haven't competed in a year. I haven't been racing. And like the last race I did, even when I started doing Ironman in Ironman Wisconsin, or when we did that together, it was like, okay, well, coming off of the last race that I did, which was Hawaii, and coming off the race before that, when I finished third in my age group, 17th overall, I came in, at Wisconsin, 14th in my age group, and like, and way back. And then in the following one in Arizona, it was like, all right, I'm 20th in my age group. Like, and I just wasn't putting in as much effort as I had been before. And so it started to get like, like a little demoralizing on that front. It was like, well, do I want to continue to grow on this front? And then and then it's just like this reflection of, all right, well, what do I need to achieve? What am I hoping to achieve? Do I want to go pro? Do I want to, do I want to just keep going back to Hawaii? I mean, I can buy a plane ticket to Hawaii. I don't have to
way easier
for a race. I mean, and so it's like, okay, well, I've done this thing. Now what's next? Right now, I just started. I became a white belt, if you will, in banjo. I just started playing, and that's something I've always wanted to learn. And I feel like that beginner, and I feel like, oh, this is exciting, and I want to get to that place where I'm playing as really well. So starting things, becoming a beginner, it can be embarrassing at first, but it can also be empowering because you have so far to go, and you have so much growth to give, and growth is where the juice is, man. That's where the fulfillment is.
Yeah, and that laughter piece with all those things, that's one thing that has helped with that. And also meeting people like my father-in-law and my wife who are very good at laughing at themselves. And I remember watching them laugh at themselves and going, what are you doing? Like my dad would be throwing a hammer through a wall and he would be cursing a whole lot, and it was really impressive because I'm waiting for the shoe to drop, but then watching someone laugh at their mistake, like even if they're really good at something and then they make a silly mistake, they laugh about it. And I'm like, I want that. Like that's the growth that I want. And that becomes intoxicating to me. And I feel like that's through that process of roll, reflect, repeat. That's the whole, the tagline of the show is you roll, you go through life, you train, you go through jiu-jitsu, you literally roll. After that, you reflect on the things that have happened, and you reflect back on the lessons and the things that really impact you. And then you go and repeat, which is go do life again. Like you have to have these rest rounds where you sit and you reflect. And I take moments to look back and like, wow, I'm really impressed by that behavior. How do I embody that? And why do I care? And then it becomes a value for me. I realize that a lot of the things that impact me are because they're rooted in my value. And I think, that's the ending topic, but you just talked about this in a recent podcast, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's, and yeah, rest is like, it's just, that's where the recovery happens. I mean, that's where the adaptations happen, right? I mean, when I was in triathlon, it's like, you can't keep going. I mean, we talked about David Goggins last week. I think this show should be called like How Not to Train Like David because, but talk about like going 100 miles every second, like going 100, giving 110% constantly doesn't work. It doesn't work for everybody. Unicorns, maybe it exists for, but I would argue that it doesn't. And there's something wrong there. What works is consistency. Consistently giving enough 80% over time and consistently working on that, because that's going to contribute to the growth, and pushing just 5% beyond your comfort zone. That's something that I call the 80%, 5% rule. That's where you just push, you give 80% instead of 110%. And you just, you go beyond your comfort zone 5% at a time every week. And and then you take the rest, you take the recovery, you reflect on it. Because that reflection, that clarity break, if you will, gives you a chance to really identify your goal and retarget. I know we all kind of get down that thing where you're looking down a scope, or you're looking through the binoculars or a telescope or whatever, and you lose sight of what you're going after. You lose sight of it. Sometimes you have to take your eye away from the scope for a second and look at the whole picture so that you can what's the word I'm looking for? Target?
Retarget, reframe, I suppose, rediscover, repurpose the metaphor, and let's try something else.
Yeah. It's so good up until that moment. Resist? No.
Yes. Stop resisting
Yeah.
me.
Yes.
Dumb and Dumber. Yeah, classic. He's resisting me. Well, I think this conversation has been great. I look forward to more. And that is truly the heart of the show, is really the focus on reflection. The rest round is the reflection. And it's anything can come up in those reflection moments. And it's just all about learning, because life is the greatest teacher. And we're just all using our minds and our bodies to write the best life story, the most empowered life story possible, and the one that you want to write. So please come back and join us as we continue the conversation. But that's going to do it for this week. And until next time, journey well, my friends. Maybe I should be like,
Adios. Oh, no.
see ya.
Bye-ya.
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 Yeah. Hiya and bye-ya.